all died when they were 6 years old, we wouldn't have any babies in the world, you know?
No, I agree, and I do agree with the crystalline canopy structure.
Uh-huh.
I don't know. I always thought it was interesting that Lily. I always thought it was interesting that there's a lot of people that don't hold to that anymore. Like because I don't know, it just seems because whenever they start talking about like biblical reasons for not believing in a canopy, um, it seems like the support they have biblically is very I don't know, it's just interesting. Because I think there's very strong evidence physical structure that you
Well, it says very
but
clearly there was water above,
um
yeah, it says there
but
was
no, I
water above the firmament. And it says very clearly the firmament is where the birds
yeah, and
fly.
then if you look in Ezekiel, it clearly talks about the canopy theory, the canopy above the. Mhm. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Anyway,
Sir. So hey, I guess I'll just ask you kind of an open-ended question. Like I said, I just started a small group. That's we just decided to title it "What Happened to the Dinosaurs." And basically, it's the
oh, did I lose his audio, brother?
Can you still hear? I think he's cutting out real bad. His service is bad.
and not an old Earth, and why evolution is what people use dinosaurs for. Why evolution is anti-biblical.
Well, the reason, yeah, you're cutting out. Your audio's cutting out, brother. The reason Satan has been able to use dinosaurs to advance his kingdom is because Christians did not have a good answer. Uh, the Bible is very clear. God made everything in 6 days. Everything. In heaven and earth. Has to be dinosaurs. And since before the flood came, we know people lived to be 900. Well, dinosaurs were just big lizards that lived with Adam and Eve. Noah took them on the ark, probably babies, just be sure to get a pink one and a blue one. And after the flood was over, they either died off from climate change or from people hunting them. They called them dragons back in those days. And if you could kill a dragon, you'd be a hero. So I think there's a few still around, but generally they're extinct. Most of the types are probably gone. We lost your audio there, brother. Matthew, you there?
I think he's stalled out completely. I don't know. There he goes.
Yeah.
He'll probably call back in, Doc.
Okay. No, we lost you there.
Okay, I think he can hear you
Can,
now.
can you hear
No,
me? We
ma'am.
cannot hear you. There we go. Now I can hear. I can see and hear you. You went inside. Yeah,
I,
yeah, yeah.
all right, I can hear you now. Yep, I decided to try inside.
Okay. Yeah, bring your
All
kids
right.
down. They'd go crazy here at Dinosaur Adventureland. It's awesome around here.
Oh yeah, we're very much looking forward to it. But I don't know if I couldn't hear anything you were saying, so I don't know if you heard what I said, so I'll ask it again.
No.
Um, but what I was saying was, like I said, I just started this small group. We called it "What Happened to the Dinosaurs," and basically, it's just the whole point of the small group is to use dinosaurs to teach a biblical mindset, right? And to kind of, in a sense, take dinosaurs back from evolutionists
Amen.
and show why evolution is not supported biblically, and how it actually makes the cross of Christ not worth anything if evolution were true. And so that's kind of the point of the small group and the direction we're going with it. And so I'm teaching all about We've had 2 sessions so far. The first session was really just a broad overview of things we'll discuss. And the second one that we just had this past Sunday night, we talked just kind of about different things that we see in the Bible, as far as we looked a little bit into Job 40 with Behemoth and 41 with Leviathan, and we defined what a dinosaur is, and we looked at that word tanim for that is usually translated as dragon, and we looked at some of the occurrences it has in the Bible. And so that's kind of how we've started off. But I figured I would kind of ask you if what you thought would be some of the more important things that you would hit if you were doing a 7-week study.
I would emphasize to the kids that we have the truth about dinosaurs. God said He made everything in 6 days, everything. It's in the 10 Commandments, Exodus 20:11. So dinosaurs had to live with man, and you should tell them all of your kids probably have some neighbors who are being taught dinosaurs lived millions of years ago, and it's your job to go teach them the truth. They're God's missionary lizards. They're an amazing creature. God said in Job 40, "Behold now Behemoth. He's got a tail like a cedar tree." That would be this guy right here, the brachiosaur. So I think they're supposed to bring glory to God for that amazing design, but Satan is using it for his kingdom. So I think every kid ought to be a dinosaur missionary to their friends.
Yes, sir. And we actually, I didn't mention this, but the small group has everybody from kids all the way up to adults, and we have a few teenagers. And I actually had one of the parents texted me yesterday saying that because they come as a family to the small group, and he texted me yesterday saying that his daughter came back from she's a high schooler. She came back from soccer practice telling him that she had a conversation with 2 of her friends about some of the stuff that we were learning about dragons. And I guess they really found Leviathan being able to breathe fire. They found that pretty cool. I guess they never really realized that before. And so they were having he said that she had a good conversation with some of her friends. But yeah, we've had some success with them using it outside in the schools so
Amen.
far.
Yeah, it's a great conversation starter. I
Absolutely.
often ask people, like, I'll go to the store to buy something, get a can of Coke or something, and I'll say, "Hey, the Bible says God made everything in 6 days, doesn't it?" "Yeah." "When did dinosaurs live?" And you see that blank stare on their face, like, "Oh, wow, I believe 2 contradictory things, don't I?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny. I remember in high school, I had never really thought about it before, but recently, when I started having that conversation with my friend that I told you about that, went from, trying to argue for Christianity to arguing against it. When I started talking to him and, we were having these conversations, I started realizing, thinking back to my days in high school, and I was like, man, I really was taught like a lot of things that I never even really thought about were, anti-biblical. And I remember specifically learning about, that what they refer to as that vestigial bone that's still in the whales that they have in their backgrounds.
Yeah. Not vestigial.
But I remember being taught that. And so he was like, man, and it's funny, I know you're familiar with a lot of the YouTube atheists, and I was even listening to, because I like to listen to a lot of people who don't agree with me, because it helps sharpen my mind. And
Right.
I was listening to, oh man, I can't even remember his name now, but it's not too important. I was listening to one of these guys. He teaches evolution. And I know at some point, whatever his name is, you featured him on I'm pretty sure you featured him on a Whack an Atheist. I left my phone, so I can't look it up. But he has this, I don't know, I guess he calls it his YouTube school for evolution. And in his very first session, he talked about that vestigial bone. And I was like, oh my goodness. I was like, that's not even evolutionary biologists recognize that's not vestigial anymore. I was like,
right.
I just think it's crazy how you have all these people who are so sure of themselves, and they put all this information out on YouTube for everybody to see, but they don't even have like their basic facts correct.
And they know that many of them know they're lying, but that's all they've got for evidence. They have to throw that in because it's like vestigial, the gill slits on the baby. They use embryology. It's been proven wrong since 1874. Guys, get a new theory, But that's all they've got. When you take away their evidence, they panic. Like, how am I going to get people to believe my theory? Get a new theory. It's real simple,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So I'm doing that, and this next session we're going to start talking about on Sunday. We have it every Sunday night at 6:30 p.m. And we're going to have our small group this week will be about we'll start looking at some of the reasons for that evolutionists give for dating fossils at millions and years old and 65 230 million years old. So we're going to start talking a little bit about the radiometric dating and the different forms of that and all that. And one thing I had them do is our first week was, I don't know if you're familiar with this. It's a little story that Answers in Genesis puts out called they call it what are they, something parable. I can't even remember what they called it now, but it's a story about 4 friends, and 3 of them go into a room and there's a letter there, and there's a candle with there's the parable of the candle. That's what they call it. And so there's a candle with a letter, and the letter says, hey, I'm going to be back, by 2:30. I left this candle here for you. Electricity went out. And the friend, the 3 friends, they see the letter and they're like, oh, and they start talking. And one of them is like, oh, well, you can't trust that letter, so let's look at the wax and try and, see how much wax is melted and see how long he's been gone. And so they start, after some discussion, they decide to just humor the person and start measuring the amount of wax that's melted to see if they can figure out how long they've been gone, that the guy has been gone. And anyway, so the whole point of this story, as the story goes on, they do all this stuff. She ends up saying, oh, well, this candle, with the amount of wax that's been burning and the rate at which it's burning, it must have been burning for, the past, 24 hours. Well, then the guy who put the candle there, he walks in and she's like, oh, you're back. Why have you been gone for a whole day? And he's like, well, I've only been gone for an hour. And she says, but we measured all the wax out. And he said, look, I left you a candle. I didn't mean for you to actually, measure out wax and do all these silly experiments to try and figure out how long I've been gone. Plus, when I met, I didn't light a new candle. The candle was already partially melted, and I used another candle to light it. And so some of the wax from that candle fell onto this candle. And so the whole point is to show that, the candle had some cross contamination on it with the amount of wax that was there. The original conditions of the candle were not what they thought the original conditions were, and so it shows some of those problems that we have with radiometric dating is some of those assumptions that are made.
Right.
And so we're going to use that. We're going to look at radiometric dating methods and some of those assumptions that go into it and the problems with it.
I would, with children, I would describe, what does radiometric mean anyway? It means you can get a headphones and a machine and hold a Geiger counter next to something, and you hear a click, click, click because it's falling apart. If I gave you a bushel of apples and you found out that every 3 weeks, half of these apples are going to go bad. And so in the first 3 weeks, half of them go bad. The next 3 weeks, half of the next half go bad. So now you got 3/4 of the apples have gone bad. And so you could find a bushel of apples and try to determine when they were picked, because half of them go bad every 2 weeks or 3 weeks. Pick a number, An illustration they can understand. All they're measuring is how many.
A good example. I appreciate that.
Yeah. All they're measuring is how many clicks are we getting per minute off of this object. They're assuming, obviously, that the rate things are happening today, decay, has always been happening. And you can't prove that. They're assuming they know how much was in it when it started. And that's the biggest assumption. If the world had a canopy overhead, almost no radiation would get through, and there would be almost no carbon-14. All the plants, all the animals would have almost no carbon-14 in their body. So when we dig them up now after the flood, we say, wow, we're using today's measurement of C14 to measure an animal that did not grow up with today's C14. So they're going to date much older than they should because they got a rubber ruler. That's the whole problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like the example that you gave there too with the apples to explain all that. And that's actually part of the good thing about my small group. I have some kids. It's actually mostly adults, though. More adults signed up for it than.
Oh, I lost you again, brother. We lost you. Can you hear me? Hello, hello. We cannot hear you anymore, and you're not moving.
It'll probably drop out, Doc, and then you'll have to. Yes.
Now we're here. Yes, I can hear you. Oh,
Can you hear me?
now I can hear you. I've only got a few more minutes, brother. What else do you want to cover?
Yeah, no. Let me see here. So I also just had a few questions about, and you've already answered this a little bit, but I honestly just also wanted to see kind of some of the things that you have going on there at Dinosaur Adventureland that I could, because I figured that would be really good to know as we're preparing to come down there, that some of the things that we talk about that I can make sure that you have there that I can talk about here so that I can, some of it can be reinforced when we go down there.
Sure. We have 30 cabin spaces people stay in. We have 17 lakes and ponds for fishing. We have zip lines across the lake. We have a giant swing the kids love. We call it the Leap of Faith. We have 3 Jeeps. We give tours around the lake, around the property end. We have a petting zoo, all kinds of animals that are friendly. We have our miniature Noah's Ark, 1/3 scale model, 1/3 the width, 1/3 the height, 1/3 the length. It's 30 feet wide and 30 feet tall and 50 feet wide, and going to be 170 feet long when we're done. So yeah, that'll be ready in a couple of weeks for at least start giving tours. It'll never be done. Let's see, what else do we have? Our petting zoo, our playground tour is amazing. We have a climbing wall, everything. We make paper airplanes that go 300 feet, blows their mind. Paper airplane.
That's awesome.
So kids go crazy.
What?
We teach them how to shoot a rubber band the scientific way. Have you ever seen that, brother?
Yeah.
No, have you ever seen it, Matthew?
I have not. I've
Brother,
heard you talk about it a couple times, but I never actually saw you do it.
My record is 92 feet with a rubber band. The length of a basketball court.
That's impressive.
Yeah, and it's a great spiritual lesson. All of them have a science lesson with a spiritual application. All of our animals are friendly. You can pet them and play with them. You can touch, kids will get to pet our turkeys, our ducks, our chickens, our emus, our donkeys, pigs. Let's see what we got: cows, sheep. It's amazing. It's really a fun place.
That's awesome.
Kids go nuts here. Mhm.
What are some of the some of the science experiments and just like little things that you have
Right.
that they can watch as they go through, like for instance the creation museum where you have like the days of creation as you go through that.
Well, day one, God said, "Let there be light." We've got a lot of cool science experiments about light, electricity, magnetism. Nobody knows what light is. What is light? Give me a jar of it. Paint it red. How much does a gallon of light weigh? Nobody knows what it is. We know what it does. You can split it, divide it, bend it, refract it, reflect it, and we've got a special glass that's translucent. You can sit opposite sides of the glass with a friend of yours and move this light switch a little bit, and you can trade faces with that person. Then day 2 is all about when God made air. We have a Taurus cannon to shoot giant smoke rings. We have a Venturi vacuum, all kinds of stuff about air. And then day 3 is all about the trees, and day 4 about the sun and moon. We have the Science Center day 6 where we made the fish. They have all the reptile room. Kids can hold a snake. Got lots of fun stuff to do in there in our reptile room. And then day 7,
awesome.
we have lots of games and activities. They can break the record. Dinosaur Adventureland, break the record. It's pretty cool. Who can put a puzzle together the fastest? That's a lot of fun stuff. Just come down and see it, brother. You're going to want to come back a couple times a year from now on.
That does sound awesome, man. We're very. My youngest daughter. This is Evie.
Hi, Edie. She's got to be 2.5.
Yeah, she actually is. She's not anymore. She just turned 3. So, but you're pretty close there.
If it's any encouragement, it took me 2 years to teach my daughter how to walk and talk. It took 20 years to teach her to sit down and shut up.
Yeah, this one's got a long ways before she's learned that.
Yeah. Once you teach them to
But-
talk, it's like, oh no, why did I do that?
Yeah, I was originally going to be in my office at the church today, but we're currently moving from a rental to a house we just bought, and so my wife asked if I could stay home today. So I'm watching
Okay.
the kids while she's getting ready for a small group.
Amen. All
But-
right. Well, come
Man,
down and
I've
visit
enjoyed
us.
this time.
Now in. Come down, visit us. Bring the whole group down. Bring the whole church down. They'd have a blast.
I
They're
absolutely will.
Yeah.
Yeah, I absolutely will, and I'll probably even email you a few other questions if. Do you think you could give me an email, and unless you just want me to keep emailing the booking one? I figure there's probably a better email if I have questions.
It's best to use my cell phone. I get so many emails I can't keep up. You have a pencil? Write down my cell number.
I got my cell phone right here, so I'll do that.
All right. 251.
It's turned on. Here we go. Contacts, add. Kent. All right, 251.
362
Okay.
4635.
463. All right, I appreciate that. I'll randomly think of questions and things that I'm very curious about, and I just appreciate you giving me the time to talk with me today.
All right. Call anytime. Thank you, Matthew.
Thank you so much.
All
You have
right,
a great
thank
day.
you. Right. Bye-bye.